everyone. So as we begin creating our mountain lion, we're going to be needing a few materials. Not very many, so that's kind of the beauty in this. The first thing that we're going to need, of course, is paper to draw on. I suggest this illustration paper because it has a really nice feel to it, but also because we're using markers on our design, and this paper is wonderful. It doesn't bleed or feather, so we really need some paper that accomplishes that. You can also use marker paper, but I do like this illustration paper. I'm using 9 by 12 inches. You can use whatever size you would like. You're also going to need a sketching tool, so a pencil of some nature. I have several sketching tools here, but I think I'm just going to go with a regular mechanical pencil because I'm going to come back later and use the markers to create definition and highlighting some areas and so forth, so it doesn't really matter. You also will need an eraser, so if you're using a mechanical pencil, you've already got one. If you're using a regular sketching pencil, then grab your eraser. And that's the other beauty in this illustration paper. It's got a really nice smooth surface, and it's supposed to be easy to erase, which I have found to be true. So this is some really good paper. We're also going to be using some markers. So I have Tombow markers here, but you can also use any other marker that you like. I just happen to like these colors, and I know that I'm going to be using them, so that's what I'm going to use here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Now remember that as you sketch something out, you're going to probably have to make a lot of changes. So don't be too tied to what you're creating as you're creating it. If you don't like something, that's perfectly fine. You can come back and change it. So let's take a look at the mountain lion sketch that I started off with, just to kind of give you an idea of what the sketch might look like as you get started. So this is what I sketched out at the very beginning, and we're going to transfer to this page, hopefully. So a couple of things that I want you to notice is when you start drawing and sketching out items, you want to do so by considering shapes. So if we take a look at what's going on here, we've got round shapes. You'll see it in the face. You'll also see it in the nose. You've got some round shapes here. You also have kind of a round shape for the body. Now this is kind of a suggested body, so we're not going to go in depth with that body shape, but we do want to suggest an additional portion of this mountain lion. You also have some sort of triangular shapes here. So keep that in mind as you're looking at these, okay? You want to kind of get those shapes. You've got some triangles, as I mentioned. We've got sort of some oval shapes going on here. We have some more round shapes here in the eyes. We have what I'm going to call commas or quotation marks. So if you can get it in your head, these various shapes, it'll be easier to draw this out. All right, so I'm also kind of envisioning a little bit of a mountain range in the background. I may add a tree limb or two to indicate that this mountain lion is inhabiting a tree at the moment. We'll see how that goes. So just for reference, I'm going to keep this next to me so that you can see how this transfers here. And that'll give you kind of an idea about size. All right, so this is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, so you can see that it would inhabit about this much. You can make it that same size or a little bit smaller if you'd like. That way, placing that mountain range in the back is not going to be a big deal. All right, so as we get started, and I'm going to come in a little bit closer, not too much closer, but a little bit. We again want to think about placement and size. If you take a look, here, the head of this lion is about like this. Okay, so you can see the size compared to my hands. And if we transfer that, it's going to be about this size. All right, so we're going to kind of start sketching out our circle for the head. Now we're not going to do a complete circle. We're just going to start off with the sides here. And we're going to end up changing those up a little bit. But right now, just to get this on the page, we want to just start sketching out our circle. Okay? Now, the next thing that we're going to sketch is this little part here. And for me, it looks like an upside down heart, kind of. So if you think about that shape, okay? So if we do an upside down heart, and don't worry about necessarily connecting it to these ends yet. We'll come back and fix those. But for right now, we just know that the placement needs to be about right here. So we're going to come in and we're going to make that just the top portion of what would be a heart upside down. And if you happen to make things a little too straight, just come back in and work with it. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to come back in and erase these sides just right here. And I'm going to create, if you'll take a look here, notice that we have a rounded part and then it comes in a little bit straighter here. So that's what we want to do. We're going to make sure that we have that rounded and then kind of straighten it out a little bit. Now again, we may come back in and correct this, but for right now, there's where we're going. Okay? All right. We're going to finish up the mouth area. Notice here, it's sort of a circle, sort of a rectangle. Okay, so maybe a rounded rectangle would be a good idea here. So we're just going to create that sense of a bottom lip. And again, we can always come back in and fix this. So just lay that down for right now. Okay. Now we want to create a nose. And notice again that the nose is that kind of a semicircle, just like we did here and again here. So we're going to make just a semicircle within this space here. So just do just a half of a circle on this side, half of a circle on this side. And then we're going to draw what I call the wave. So you'll see here this line goes up like a mountain range, down into a valley, up like a mountain range, and then back down. Okay? Up like a mountain range, down like a valley, up like a mountain range, and back down. So we're going to give that a try. So remember, up like a mountain range, about halfway through we're going to drop down into the valley, come back up for the mountain range, and finish off. Okay. Now that we've done that, we want to finish off this portion of the nose. So see this little hook right here? We're just going to create this little hook. So it's just going to go right here. Right there in the middle. And now we're going to connect all of that together. So what you're going to want to do, notice that this comes out like that. Okay, leave this alone for a moment. We're just going to come in and connect those. So essentially what we're doing is we're going to take this line, we're going to come in a little bit, then come back out and connect. Same thing here. We're going to come in a little bit, come back down and connect. All right, so what we've done here is created a space for our nostrils. So I'm just going to make like a semicircle here and a semicircle here. And then just kind of color it in to give me that idea of a darkened nostril. Now I'll come back in and correct that because I do want it a little bit lower, but we just are placing things right now. Okay, and then we're also going to give it kind of a character mark here, so we're going to add some lines right there. That also is going to help us decide where to put our eyes. Okay? All right. So we're going to add just a little bit of a line here. And then we'll also add a line here. Okay, so already you can see that our mountain lion is coming into being here. Okay, so now we want to create some eyes. So we're going to make the eyes about right here. So we're going to start with just kind of shaping out those eyes. Okay, so if you think of this in terms of a leaf, so let me show you here. If you think of it in terms of a leaf, you know, you can make a leaf like this. So when you create the eye, think of it in that shape. Okay, and then we'll go on the other side, and I'm going to actually work from this point down, because if I do it this way, it's going to come out straight, and it may very well do that here too. You never know. We'll give it a try. So I'm just shaping it out. Okay, so we have the beginning of our eyes. Now notice that the bottom part of the eye kind of comes round and then it goes out to a point. So that's what we want to create now. So we're going to start just a little bit above, so right here and approximately right here. And we're going to bring that down, and then we're going to come up into a point. Okay, so it's kind of like a leaf, but at this very tail we're going to come in a little bit and make it into a point. And I'm going to take away a little bit of this because it looks just a little bit larger than this one. Alright, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to kind of make a round circle and then come to a point. Alright, so now we're going to do a semicircle like this. Okay, both sides, semicircle, both sides. And I hope by now you're already getting stoked, because this is already looking very much like a mountain lion. And now we're going to make what is the eye. So we're going to make, instead of going longer, more oblong here, we're going to go rounder. So go round and back up. That's almost scary looking, isn't it? Round and back up. And now we're going to make pupil. So this is even rounder. Look at that. Already kind of scary. Alright, so a mountain lion, or really any of the cats, have these pads that are what we're going to call eyebrows, but they're really just these pads above the eyes. So we're going to make question mark, or not question marks, quotation marks right here, just a little bit in on each eye. So we're going to come, in my case, I'm coming about 1/4 of an inch up, because I'm going to need this space for something else in just a moment. But I want to place this quotation mark. So it's in the shape of a teardrop, right? Or a comma. So we want to kind of make that same shape. And then we're going to do the same thing here. And remember, we're just placing, so if it's, if it's not correct, you can go back in. Sorry about that. Had something on the edge of the table. You can always come back and fix it. All right? So now come back in where we have created the eyes, and we're going to create what is essentially an eyelid. So we want to start here, and we're going to end up at the same point where we brought this portion of our eye in. And we'll do the same thing here. All right, so to give you some perspective, if you want to do this, first of all, check your eyes, make sure that they're fairly similar. But just to give you some perspective, you can color the iris or the pupil in to see how well you're doing here. And if that kind of freaks you out, you're doing pretty well, okay? All right, so now we're going to draw some ears. Remember that the ears are somewhat triangular. So we're going to kind of give a triangular shape. We're going to round it off on the end, and then we're going to bring it in with a little bit of a swoop here. So just sketch out kind of straight, loop at the end, and then we're going to come in here. And that's a little too wide there. There we go. And then on this side, we're going to do the same thing. All right, and now we're going to connect the portion between the two ears. So that's just a circular motion there. I actually want it to have, it's a little too straight for me, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit. There we go. Okay, to give our ears some shape, we're going to make some indentions here. On this side, we're just going to create a line that goes somewhat down and then hooks over. So that's going to indicate outer ear and inner ear. And then this one, the ear is actually looking directly at us or facing directly at us. So we're going to create a semi-triangular shape to create the inside. And just essentially follow along with what you created before for the outside of the ear. And then we'll continue with the top of the head to give it some definition. Let's make a little bit of a line here. And then we're going to kind of come down to a point and back up. And in this area you can make, various lines in between if you would like. That just indicates kind of that skin, the fur moving. All right, so let's give some more definition here. We're going to also create some more movement by drawing a semicircle kind of between this pad that we were talking about towards the eye, and then from the eye down here. Alright, so let's take a look overall, see if we like it or not. I think this is a little straight. So I'm going to kind of redo that so that it's not as straight. So there we go. Alright, so we're going to give it a little bit of character up here. You can follow along with what I'm doing or you can do your own thing, but essentially we want to create definition here. So what I'm going to do is just draw kind of a swirly line. I think of it in terms of a river that's flowing. And I'm going to do it on both sides. And again, it doesn't have to be the exact same thing. And then that will be colored in. So I'm just going to suggest that with some hash marks for now. And then I just want to create some movement there too. So I do a few hash marks. Okay. So as I look at this, for me, this portion is a little too large in comparison to the rest of the face. So I'm going to reduce this a little bit. And then I'll need to reduce this a little bit. So as you go along, of course, you can make these alterations. Okay. So take a look and see what it is that you like about what you've drawn. Some of these lines that I've drawn are a little bit too straight for me, so I'm going to come back in and adjust them a little bit. All right. So now we're going to take these lines and we're going to work with them a little bit more, and I want to show you what I'm talking about. So the head is not perfectly circular. It's actually kind of rounded here around where the cheeks would be, and then it comes in a little bit. So I'm now going to take those away now that I have the components on the interior of my design. I'm going to actually come back in here and just work with my lines a little bit. And what I'm doing is kind of making it a little bit circular straight, if that makes any sense. So a little bit straight here, and then somewhat circular here. And this may take several tries before we get it to where we like it. Just keep trying. Okay. So now we'll add some other areas for effect for the moment. We'll come back and work on these. What I'm doing now is just doing hash marks to indicate the inside of this ear. And then same thing here. I'll do the entire thing for the inside of the ear. So I think it's good for you to see the sketching process. So that you can determine where you might want to change some of your sketching. All right, for me, this nose is a little too round. It's more like a piggy snout, so I'm going to change that just a little bit and make it a little bit straighter. There we go. And then fix some of my lines. Okay. This, I think, came out a little bit odd looking, so I'm going to continue to work with this. And just continue to fix wherever you think it looks odd. All right, I think this is still a little too large. So I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Okay, and I may come back and fix that later, but for right now I think that's okay. So we want to indicate a little bit of fur here in the middle down towards the nose, so I'm just going to do some hash marks very lightly. And then I'm still irritated by this side. Hold on here. Okay, so now we're going to add just a little suggestion of a body. So we're just going to kind of move it like this. Just kind of a straight line down, but we want to make sure that it is wide enough to suggest that body. Okay, and notice I don't have them totally symmetrical. This one came a little bit straighter, this one kind of comes off to the side. All right, so we're going to make some hash marks to indicate where the whiskers are rooted. So I like the number 3. You can do 4, 5 if you'd like, but I like number 3, so I'm just going to do some hash marks here to indicate where these are. And I'm going to do this on both sides. All right, and we're going to give just a little bit of the chest hair here. I'm just going to do, again, some light hash marks. And then create a little bit of dimension by adding some additional lines throughout. Now notice I'm not being very technical here because I just don't think for something like this that you have to be ultra technical, okay? So don't panic about this. Notice that I'm just adding lines where I think some movement will be. And I want to show you, this is how strange that any type of sketching can be. This sketch didn't take me long at all. I mean, I just pretty much laid it down and sketched it out. Here I'm struggling with getting this how I want it, but that's part of the process, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to keep correcting where I need to. Okay, so now when we add some whiskers, we're just going to do some light whiskers, and notice that in this version some of the whiskers come off the page, some are shorter, these over here are a little bit longer. Whiskers are not the same length. If you look at your dog or cat, if you have a cat, they're not all the same length. So just kind of whisk them out, and I do about 3 for each one of these areas that I created. However, I don't just keep them separated from each other. They run into each other as well. Okay, so go ahead and add your whiskers. And remember, don't do a straight line. Whiskers don't go in a straight line. Flip them out. See how I'm not even paying attention really to how they're going. And of course, you can see I made these way too long. That's okay. Just make them flourish first, and then you can come back and fix, just like always.